There was one that we just recently saw right before we jumped on this. Not enough. It was called Not Another Pill.
Sounds
Yeah.
right.
Do I have that right?
Yes.
Yeah, it had a little bit more to the title, but yeah, like integrative pain management approaches or something like that. Yeah.
Okay. Now, I didn't spend a lot of time there, but I'm going to let you all, who wants to lead the telling everybody sort of the main takeaways here?
I know, Stephanie, you asked a great question and it was answered, right?
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. I was like, yay, go Stephanie.
I felt famous for like a second. I was like, oh my God, I got noticed. Yeah, I was asking two questions actually. There were so many interesting things that we learned from that one. But I think the overarching principle on this was that they were teaching clinicians to look at patients from this biopsychosocial approach, use this biopsychosocial model when it comes to pain. And so what they're talking about here is we're looking at the biological, right? So we're looking at like disease activity, CRP, right? Blood work. Then we're looking at the psychological factors that could be influencing pain, right? So like trauma was something that came up that I thought was so fascinating. That was by Dr. Hassett. And she was talking about how up to a third of chronic pain patients can have past trauma. And she's a psychologist. So as a psychologist, she always is looking at addressing that trauma so that we can treat that pain, right? And then the social approach of that biopsychosocial. So we're looking at the influence of quality of life, right? Does this patient have social relationships that may improve their quality of life and thus their perception of pain and their experience with pain? So I thought that was very fascinating.
Hey, Stephanie, so what is your job?
I'm a social worker.
Which I think draws, again, why the passion. And again, it was really a good session too. I agree. But I just wanted to bring that out, that you're a social worker, because what your passion lies with. And again, how like it was just resonating so much.
Yeah, it really was. I'm doing my MSW now. So yeah, thank you. So that really resonated with me. And of course, this patient-centered framework, right? We want the patients to talk about their experience and it's a focus on what the patient is experiencing. One of the things that Dr., I don't know how to pronounce his name, Geenan.
Oh, I don't know. I'm not sure.
Geenen. I know Deb and I were having a hard time with that.
Brennan? Maybe? Yeah, Brennan, maybe.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
He was from the Netherlands, so a European name. So that's why it was a little harder, but I agree. What I loved is it was individualized.
Yes.
Specific.
Very specific. He said, what did he say? He said, not every patient is obese. Not every patient is depressed. Not every patient has sleep disturbances. I love that because when you're looking at pain management, you want to attack this person's specific needs, their real problems, right? Mm-hmm. So I thought that was just so fascinating that he was able to bring that up in his talk.
And how you made me think of something. How often do we talk to other people in our community and they're like, I'm so tired of my doctor saying, well, maybe you should lose weight, or how are you, like, oh, it must be your sleep. Even it just like stereotyping almost, like this must be what it is. And this was completely the opposite. I didn't see the whole session, but I did see that beginning, and he had sort of like a grid or a graph with different bubbles that had that sleep, and they said everybody's map changes. Everybody's, what one person might be disease activity is causing the pain, the other one could be the depression or the way your tolerance is or things. So, and I'm looking at the notes here, and it was of just the notes, individual, personalized, customized. It's like almost every other bullet had that on there.
Yeah. And another thing that I thought was just so great was Dr. Stamatos. She talked about the strengths-based perspective. And this was just so great to me, because what it talked about was having the patient identify their own strengths, right? And so like in social work, we talk a lot about this strengths perspective. And what it looks at is, what does this patient, everybody has, so it's this idea that everybody has strengths, everyone. So it could be maybe they have a great social support network. Maybe they're just resilient, right? Maybe they're just a resilient person. And so when they're talking about managing pain, they want to have this strengths perspective, which is helping the patient identify, okay, what do I have that's working for me right now? Yes, I live with chronic pain. Yes, I'm in pain. But what do I have that I can use to manage that pain better, right? So I thought that was really great.
I love it.
And I think that kind of leads into,
Go ahead.
So I was going to say, talking about a patient's strengths help with creating shared goals, creating shared decision-making with the patient. So the physician knows, okay, they do see that as a strength. Maybe they can do this, and I maybe wasn't thinking about that. So it helps create that dialogue, that conversation to create those goals.
Absolutely.
All right. Effie, did you want to add anything?
I think you guys covered it all,
Okay.
quite honestly. Yeah, I mean, I was right there. So yeah, they
okay.
It all, yeah.
All right. And so I'll just kind of add a couple extra things on here. The person who did present first from the Netherlands was talking about a research study in creating guidelines through EULAR. And we didn't say EULAR is the European Alliance of Associations for Rheumatology. They changed their name a few months ago. So I actually had to pull it up to say that, because I keep wanting to say European League Against Rheumatism, because I've been saying that for a decade or whatever since I've been in this field. So I haven't quite
made
broken the habit of the old name yet. But it was, what was really good about what he was presenting was that they are working on these recommendations for pain management, all based on personalization, the uniqueness of the individual, and shared decision making, which is the process of working with your doctor to come up with a mutual, have a mutual discussion on what your personal preferences are with their educated recommendations, and together you come to a conclusion that is best for you, the individual. So it's also a good example of, when we go to the ACR, or we go to EULAR, we go to these scientific conferences, it's not all about biologics.
Right.
It's not all, I mean, because I think some people think that, like, oh, research means we're talking about, biologics or disease modifying agents. And it's really wonderful to know, and I think to be reassured as a patient, there's a lot of research going on around non-pharmacologic, around fatigue, around exercise, around, communication with our doctors. So, and now cost. And I didn't stay for the whole second half, but on my very few notes I have here on the second part that was called No Magic Pill, that was talking about the bridge of pharma and non-pharma together. The first thing that was out there, it started with cost. It started with the cost analysis. It's like, here it is again.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about that non-pharmacological therapy. One thing I thought that was interesting that they brought up was that, and I'll just spill the tea here. They were talking about psychotherapy interventions, and one commenter kind of asked a question, and I assume this person was a rheumatologist, and he said, what was it that he said? He said, how do we convince patients to do these like psychotherapy interventions? And I was like, oh God, right? I wonder what he's telling his patients. And she said it so beautifully. She's like, well, when we approach patients, the most important thing is to not tell them that their pain is in their head, right? That's I was like, idea. After he said it, I was like, yes, 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 yes. And she said, how you want to approach patients is talk about psychotherapy being used as a tool in their toolbox. So this is just one of the many tools that they can use to manage their pain, in addition to medication, exercise, PT, OT, all those things. So I loved how she.
That's a really good point though to bring up. And the cognitive behavioral therapy, that is something that really came up about 2 years ago. I want to say again, we will have to link to some of our debriefs from a couple years ago, because there was actually a session. It's like pain. It's all in your head, or and is it? Really was. It was like but it was about that we have different thresholds of pain and perceived pain, and all of that comes from our brains and how our perceptions. It was really fascinating. We'll have to link to that one, because it was probably one of the most interesting ones of that session. But again, I think a testament to her for pointing that out, that again, communication, better ways to communicate with the patient. Anything else anyone wanted to add to that one?
I think that about covered it.
All right, we're gonna move on then.